One of the golden things about the MCU was the larger, connected story. The unity of phases 1 through 3 built up to the one final battle in Avengers Endgame. However, phases 4 through 6 struggled to find its footing when it came to trying to tell a final story. From Kang the Conqueror to the sudden emergence of Doctor Doom, the question now has to be asked, what would have happened if the Multiverse Saga actually had a complete story like its predecessor? Today, I will be going through phases 4 through 6 and attempted to create a story that's united much like the Infinity Saga. Let's begin. But to start things off, here are some clarifying rules. I will be attempting to build a story that builds to Avengers Doomsday, but I will not be adding my own projects. Each project that I discussed will be an existing project that is already in one of the phases already. There will be projects that I won't discuss very much and others that I will discuss in a lot more detail. I feel it's also important to mention that I will be switching some of the release orders of the projects to fit the story better. Now, with all that being said, let's start the Multiverse Saga. To start things off, we have 3 films that will release first. Much like the actual release order that these happened, Spider-Man Far From Home and Black Widow will be the first 2 films after Endgame. But joining these first 2 films will actually be a film that was released a little too late, being Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. The reason these 3 will be first is so that they can represent Marvel's past, present, and future. Black Widow is a film that happens after the events of Captain America Civil War, and will act as a way to represent Marvel's past, and also allude to the future next generation of heroes. Spider-Man No Way Home will continue the story after Endgame like it always did, and continue to show the current status of the MCU's present, and how things are changing now that the Avengers are gone. Now, with those 2 past films, they basically will stay the same and I don't have many changes to them. However, the 3rd film is where things will start to be changed. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is going to be, in a way, the Captain America the First Avenger film for the Multiverse Saga. It's going to set up Marvel's future. The movie will be very similar to what was actually released, but there are some changes that I will be making. First of all, just so everyone knows, yes, Luis will be returning. I know it's not vital to the story, and in the larger story that I'm making here, it's really not that important. But I figured I might as well assure the fans that he is here. Luis will appear at the beginning of the film where Cassie is being picked up from jail. He's actually the one that contacted Scott to let him know what happened. Here, we'd get a classic moment of Luis trying to explain to Scott what happened and how Cassie ended up in jail with his classic storytelling way. After that, the film will continue on into the quantum realm, much like the original. Now, I won't spend too much time on this, but just to acknowledge it, MODOK will be changed so that he can keep the helmet on the entire film. I mean, come on, did anyone really think that MODOK would work any other way? He's a giant floating head. As we continue on, we eventually will make it to the part of the story where Kang must be stopped or slowed down. Of course, our finale. Luckily, Scott and his crew are able to get Kang and develop a way to capture and contain him, but it's not permanent. Kang eventually will be sealed away, and Hope and Scott actually have a device that tells them how long they have until their containment breaks and Kang escapes. The film will also have a brand new ending, as once Scott and Hope are able to get Janet, Hank, and Cassie out of the quantum realm, their way out is then destroyed, trapping Kang, Scott, and Hope inside the quantum realm. With Scott and Hope trapped in the quantum realm and Kang being sealed away, Ant-Man and the Wasp are now the only people who know how long they have until Kang actually returns. This now gives us a countdown until Kang's return. As for the end credit scenes, one of them will stay the same, that being the Council of Kangs. However, our second end credit scene will be something brand new. Instead of the clip from Loki, we would see a scene back into the quantum realm, where Scott and Hope are still trapped. They're trying to get a signal out into the real world, to warn anybody they can about Kang. However, Scott lets them know that they have no clue who or how someone will ever receive the signal, but it will go out there. This will actually set up one of the next films and a plot point that will be carried on throughout the entirety of this saga. Now, just to mention this project, Eternals will appear here as a Disney Plus project. Look, Eternals is a film that doesn't add a lot, and it's honestly one of those stories that is pretty hard to fit into our large story. Look, honestly, Eternals can go basically anywhere as long as it's before Captain America Brave New World. It's a project that I don't want to give the short end of the stick, but it's gonna have to be on the back burner, much like quite a few of these projects. Jumping back to our main plot, we would then jump to our 4th film being the introduction of Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is an amazing film and does a great job at introducing a big player to our larger story. The film will stay the same, but the end credit scenes will have a bit more context now. When the film originally came out, many fans assumed that the end credit scene was hinting to the fact that the 10 rings may have been emitting a signal that could have been quantum. Wong, Banner, and Carol were all looking into the 10 rings, but none of them knew what it was. In this case, the fans would actually be right, and we'd find out that this is the signal that Scott and Hope are trying to use to warn the others. Here in this group, nobody has the expertise to figure out what it is. The signal is out there and it's reached someone who can help, but nobody knows what it actually says. Next up, we have 2 Disney Plus shows, being both Loki and WandaVision. To make this easy, I've merged Loki season 1 and 2 so I don't have to displace both seasons. But for Loki, everything will stay very similar. But instead of stopping Kang altogether, basically what they do is Loki, Mobius, and OB are able to slow down Kang Prime from returning, but not stop him completely. Meanwhile, jump into WandaVision. WandaVision will stay basically the same. I mean, it kind of has to be a show to work. It'll stay the same up until the end credit scene, which is a pattern you will see a lot throughout this video. Instead of Wanda hearing the voices of Billy and Tommy when looking into the Darkhold, she would rather hear the laugh of someone who is evil. She would reactively close the book out of worry once she hears this laugh, and it sets up another big film that is coming up. But this laugh was not Kang's. Now, our third MCU show would be The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But in this rewrite, the show will actually be changed into a film. Now, whether or not this would count as a Captain America film, I'm not exactly sure. It can either be Captain America 4 or just a Falcon and the Winter Soldier film. It works either way. The film will be a shorter version of the show's plot, following Sam as he's trying to take on the name Captain America without the super soldier serum. One difference is that there will be a seed planted here, specifically regarding Bucky. Bucky will plant the seed in Sam's head of forming a new team of Avengers as Captain America. Sam decides that he's going to start to work on it, but he doesn't exactly immediately jump on it. Now, another big change to notice is once the show is over, Bucky will be well aware of John Walker, and now he will also be aware that someone is hiring Walker. This sets up a future film where Bucky is already onto Val's plots. After that, we jump to our next film, being Hawkeye. Yes, I did say film. Hawkeye is another show that I think would have worked better as a film.
The only real change I'd make would probably be including more of Clint's backstory from the deleted scenes. But other than that, I think Hawkeye works really well.
This would help Hawkeye since there won't be as much time for people to actually start to find out Kingpin, and it would be a bigger surprise. And it would also help temper some expectations in people hoping that maybe someone like Spider-Man would show up. The film would still follow the same story, but the ending will have an additional end credit scene. Of course, we have to keep the Rogers the Musical scene. But in addition to this, there's going to be a brand new end credit scene where Clint is able to contact both Sam and Bucky. Clint tells them that Yelena was hired by a woman named Val, and that he's been able to hear rumblings of people trying to form their own Avengers. Again, Clint will be another person who suggests to Sam to form a new Avengers team. Sam agrees and considers this, but eventually, when it comes to this call, Sam will leave first. However, Bucky stays on the call and lingers. Clint can easily tell that Bucky is hiding something from Sam, and Bucky tells him that he's already onto Val's trail, but he hasn't told Sam about that yet. Clint warns Bucky to tell Sam, or else things are going to get a lot worse, and Bucky assures him he'll deal with it when he can. This will set up another story that is later on, but for now we need to get into 3 big films that are going to have huge significant impacts on our story. These 3 films being Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and The Marvels. For Spider-Man No Way Home, yeah, I can't change that movie. It'll stay exactly the same as it was released. But it's important to note that this is the first big interaction between Earth 616 and the multiverse. That is one of the reasons this film and the other 2 will be very important. Remember that. Shortly after Spider-Man No Way Home will of course be Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this is one of the films that have actually changed the plot quite a bit, so hear me out. Instead of having Wanda as our antagonist, she'll actually be helping Doctor Strange to fit better with her arc in WandaVision. Now, the villain of this movie will be that voice that Wanda heard in WandaVision's end credits scene. This villain will be revealed to be Nightmare. In this film, Nightmare was released from the Darkhold by Wanda on accident, and now he wants to find America Chavez, especially when he discovers that her power is to travel through the multiverse. Nightmare's goal is to spread his power as much as he can and conquer as much as he wants. Wanda is able to warn Doctor Strange about what's going on after he's able to save America from some of the monsters that were in this version sent by Nightmare. The heroes will then split up. Wanda Maximoff and Wong will both head to Mount Wundagore to hopefully try and find and stop Nightmare at his base. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange and America Chavez will travel through the multiverse, trying to escape from Nightmare's monsters through different Earths. The most important Earth that they visit will of course be Earth 838, the home to the Illuminati. The Illuminati will still try and help, but Nightmare is able to manipulate Earth 838 Wanda to beat the Illuminati. In the end, after Strange is able to find the Book of Ashanti, him and his team are able to finally beat Nightmare, and America is able to fully control her powers. Now this is an important tidbit, because of how she uses them. In the end, America will use her powers to allow Wanda to live in a different universe with her boys. Now, as for our end credit scenes, we have, in addition to the third eye scene, we have another scene where we witness the Council of Kangs. The Council of Kangs are actually targeting multiple Earths. Specifically, the Council of Kangs have been targeting 4 Earths. Earth 616 or 199999, Earth 828, Earth 10005, and Earth 838. But due to the events of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the Council of Kangs no longer sees Earth 838 as a target. For some reason, the 3 remaining Earths are shown as Earths that could be a threat to Kang's plan. Now, when this film is released, the audience would have no clue what Earth 828 or what Earth 10005 are, but all they know is that these 2 Earths will be important in the future alongside Earth 616. This film does 2 main things. 1. It takes 2 of Marvel's biggest heavy hitters out of the picture for Avengers Doomsday. By the end of the film, Strange does end up following Clea into the Dark Dimension, and in our rewrites, Wanda has decided to live in another universe with her kids. And 2, it will help a future film showing that certain people can be replaced in other universes. The example being that Wanda is replacing the Wanda that was missing from whatever Earth she went to. Again, we'll bring that up when that film comes around. Now, I did mention our third film will be The Marvels. But before we get to The Marvels, we do need to introduce Ms. Marvel. The show itself will stay the same, as I actually really enjoyed this show. And the only addition would be, for my own personal desire, that Kamala is still part Inhuman. I just like the Inhumans. We then would jump to our third big film, being The Marvels. Now, I'll be honest, I couldn't really come up with a great plot for this film, so it's gonna have to stay the way it is. The important thing, though, is, again, the end credits. The scene will actually stay the same, where Monica Rambeau finds out she's in another universe. This universe being the universe of the X-Men, as she meets the Beast. The change, however, is that by the end of the scene, a designation number will appear in the corner naming the Earth 10005. This would finally answer the questions that were brought up in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as to what Earths Kang was targeting. We finally know one of the 2 unnamed Earths that Kang saw as a threat. Why are these 3 films so important? Well, simply because it makes Earth 616 a bigger target. Kang notices that out of all the Earths that he is targeting or sees as a danger, Earth 616 is becoming the most worrisome, because these 3 films have shown that Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Captain Marvel all back to back has started to dabble in the multiverse, each time painting a bigger target on Earth 616's back. And now, the final nail in the coffin for Kang's worry is that someone from Earth 616 has actually crossed over to one of the other target Earths that he was already worried about. Kang is starting to think these Earths are working together to take him down, so he decides it's time to speed up his plan. After all of that, we'd take a break from some of the multiverse stuff and jump to Wakanda Forever. The story, I think, can stay the same, but again, the end credits scene will continue the story that was established in Shang-Chi. This brand new end credit scene would showcase Shang-Chi, Bruce Banner, Katie, Wong, and Carol Danvers all meeting up with Shuri to inspect the 10 rings. Luckily, Shuri is able to get a better answer as to what the signal is. She finds out that the signal is incredibly small, or quantum. This finally clicks for the entire team, realizing the one person they need to help is Scott Lang. Now, the next film will be Thor: Love and Thunder, and to be honest, my rewrites aren't really connected to the large story, it's just kind of fixing what I think could be better in the film. With a title like Love and Thunder, I honestly would have loved to see a story involve Lady Sif and her feelings for Thor that we got to explore in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But also, I think including the Enchantress as a secondary antagonist would have made a better story. Like I said, I don't have a ton of rewrites for this movie, but just a few thoughts. Now, to be honest, the next set of projects are actually pretty difficult to fit into the main story with how widespread they are. So I'll kind of have to speed through them. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special and Guardians 3 would stay the same, as honestly, I don't know where else to fit them into the story building up to Doomsday. The same goes for a lot of the Disney Plus content, being Werewolf by Night, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Echo, Secret Invasion, Agatha All Along, and Daredevil Born Again. The shows are all so separate and disconnected that I couldn't think of a way to fit them all into the story, so I'm gonna have to kind of just leave them be. Finally though, we do come to our next big film being Captain America Brave New World. Now this film is actually pretty interesting to me, as I'm not sure how to format this story, but I do think there are two great stories to be told, so I'll be telling it as basically two parts. The first part of the story will pick up after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, following Sam and Joaquin Torres as they begin to track down Sharon Carter. Off screen, we find out that they were able to find out that Sharon was the power broker, and they've been trying to stop her. Sharon has actually hired the Serpent Society as her mercenaries to track down items to sell to whoever she needs. Sharon now has her eyes set on adamantium, and she wants to get as much as she can for it. So now, Joaquin and Sam have to not only stop her and the Serpent Society, but they have to make sure that the adamantium doesn't end up in the wrong hands. The second part of the story would continue on, where now Sharon is also hired by Samuel Stearns to gain something. Stearns specifically wants things that are involved with gamma radiation. Now this second story, or this second part, would be more of a Hulk-focused story, where Stearns does become the main villain and Thaddeus Ross is more haunted by him. Look, it's pretty difficult to tell this second story because it is such a Hulk-centered story, and Marvel doesn't exactly have rights to make a Hulk movie. So, as hard as it is to fit everybody in, Sam and Joaquin do have to kinda be here for the story to work. The story can get to a point where Sam and Joaquin decide it's time to bring in Bruce Banner, and you can even go as far as to continue the Incredible Hulk storyline, maybe even bringing back Dr. Samson from the Incredible Hulk film. Eventually, Sam and Joaquin will have to deal with the Serpent Society and Sharon Carter. Meanwhile, Bruce Banner and Doc Samson, who maybe he gets his powers in this movie as well, will have to deal with the Leader and the Red Hulk. Like I said, the main issue with this is that if this was a Disney Plus show, I don't think really you can introduce Red Hulk in a Disney Plus show. That's something that should be reserved for the big screen, so you may see the dilemma I run into. Instead of the end credit scene that we actually got with the Leader, that moment will instead just be the last scene of the Leader in the film. This new end credit scene will show how Sam and Joaquin end up meeting the new heroes. This new end credit scene will now show Sam and Joaquin actually meeting up with the heroes who are trying to find Scott Lang. Sam is probably the best person to find Scott, but Sam tells him he doesn't exactly know where he is right now, but he still can find him. This scene would also have a huge impact, as we'd get one final reveal. Sam realizes that someone or something is coming, and decides it's time to form the Avengers. This basically would confirm a brand new Avengers lineup. Sam Wilson, Joaquin Torres, Shang-Chi, Bruce Banner, Captain Marvel, and maybe even Wong. They are the next batch of Avengers. But this also will add some conflict to another film, which I'll get to in a second. Before I get to that film, I do need to acknowledge Deadpool and Wolverine. I'll be completely honest, I kind of forgot about this movie when I was building up this timeline, so I'll just mention it here. This film will be built up because of Multiverse of Madness. Remember how I mentioned that Wanda staying behind in another universe was going to help another story later on? Well, that story is this one. Because the fact that Wanda was able to replace the missing Wanda would further help aid the plot of the film, where Wade Wilson is trying to find another Logan to replace his anchor being. Really, that's all the notes I have for Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't have many changes for it. So with that being said, let's just jump to our next film. The film that Captain America Brave New World will clash with is going to be the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts film will stay basically the same for the most part. The difference being the end credit scene impact. Now, by the beginning of the scene, the team has basically accepted that they have been titled the New Avengers. And we do hear issues about Sam and Bucky. With the story that we've been able to tell with these past few projects, this argument or issue between Sam and Bucky seems a lot less petty and shallow, where it's not just about the name that Sam copyrighted, but now it's about the secrets that Bucky kept. Bucky knew that there was another team forming, but never informed Sam. And after Bucky encouraged Sam to form a new Avengers team, the team that Bucky was supposed to be watching over has now taken the name the New Avengers. This causes more conflict as we literally just saw Sam's team form. This causes a lot more conflict because in the film prior, we literally saw Sam finally form the Avengers team, and most likely he would have asked Bucky to join. But now, the issue is that Sam's team, while being formed first, has not gone public. On the other hand, Bucky's team has and is now getting the praise. This stings a lot more because we as an audience know that Sam had assembled the team that Bucky told him to form. But now, another team that Bucky was supposed to be watching has taken that title. The scene will still end basically the same way, where we'd have the Fantastic Four tease setting up Avengers Doomsday. Alright, we're at the home stretch. Only a few projects left, so let's begin our final act. First of all is going to be Ironheart. And it's another project I'm gonna have to end up skipping. Again, I'm not sure how to incorporate the story, so I'm gonna have to put it on the back burner for now. But with Ironheart out of the way, we can jump to our big Avengers film. But wait, I hear you asking, you forgot about Fantastic Four. Yeah, I did. And actually, there's a reason for that. The reason is simply that the movie I'm referring to isn't Avengers Doomsday. Instead, our next film in the timeline will be Avengers Kang Dynasty. Think of this film as the Age of Ultron film for the saga. The story would follow Sam's new Avengers team, who are also now joined by Thor. They're able to free Scott and Hope, who also joined the team, to find out what the rings are signaling. The Kang Dynasty is now free, and so is Kang Prime. The Avengers then have to stop Kang from forming Chronopolis from all different eras of time, and they have to try and defeat the dynasty once and for all. Luckily, the team is able to do so. That is, until Kang drops a bomb before he is destroyed. He tells them he's not the one they should have feared. After the film, the Avengers think that they have won, but Sam still feels uneasy with Kang's warning. So, Sam goes to meet Samuel Stearns. Sam was able to ask Stearns if Kang was the big threat that he was warning of, to which Stearns simply replies, no. Stearns tells him that the threat is still on its way, and his name is Doom. This would be the first time any announcement of Doom would emerge. Doom would be revealed at the ending of this film, surprising everyone that Avengers Doomsday was on the way and was an additional film to the timeline. With that huge shocker reveal out of the way, we then would have Fantastic Four First Steps. The film works perfectly fine and does exactly what it needs to do. So the film stays as is, setting up Avengers Doomsday and giving fans the final answer they need. Remember, Kang was worried about 3 Earths. We know 2 of them, but after watching Fantastic Four First Steps, they would find out that Earth 828 is the home to the Fantastic Four. The fans would now know that the 3 Earths that are now on Doom's radar are the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. These next films are actually going to be kind of difficult to work with since, well, they haven't really released, so I'm going to have to shoot off the cuff here. Spider-Man Brand New Day would be our next film that follows Peter Parker as he deals with all that's been going on. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to connect this film back to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Spider-Man Brand New Day is said to include both Bruce Banner and Peter Parker, 2 characters who are noticeably absent from Doomsday's cast reveal. Here, we'd find out why. By the end of the film, Doctor Strange would show up with Clea, revealing that Bruce and Peter must come with them and can't be involved with what's about to happen next. Peter and Bruce would both follow him, vanishing to who knows where. This does a very similar thing to what Multiverse of Madness does, taking out 2 of Marvel's biggest players for an unknown reason. Doctor Strange, Wanda Maximoff, Peter Parker, and Bruce Banner are all missing. This would finally lead to Avengers Doomsday, where the Thunderbolts are able to receive the warning from the Fantastic Four about Doom. They team up with Sam's Avengers to try and stop him, and eventually find out there's one more Earth they need to connect with, the X-Men. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and X-Men will all try and stop Doom. And if the rumors seem to be true, they will have to save the future generation of our Marvel heroes, with young kids like Love, Steve Rogers' son, Prince T'Challa, Billy and Tommy, Franklin Richards, and who knows, maybe even characters like America Chavez, Ms. Marvel, or even X-23. The 3 teams will try their best to stop Doom, however, this film will end with their loss. Doom will be able to use the power of Franklin Richards to form Battleworld, but luckily, Doctor Strange returns right in the nick of time with the help of Loki to save certain heroes. Think of this like Pariah saving the Paragons on Crisis on Infinite Earths. Certain heroes are needed to save the day. As for who the saved heroes would be, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe the Fantastic Four, Cyclops, Captain America, Shang-Chi, other characters like that. The saved heroes, plus a lot of the missing heroes who were not in Doomsday, would all return in Secret Wars to make one final stand against Doctor Doom. Doctor Strange, Wong, America Chavez, maybe the Young Avengers, Spider-Man, Hulk, Hawkeye, Wanda, Captain Marvel, Star-Lord, Deadpool, Wolverine, and you know what? Let's throw in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I want them there. Would all try and unite to save everyone. One last stand against Doom in Secret Wars, ending the Multiverse Saga. This is a big story to connect, and honestly I had a lot of fun doing it. I know it may not be the strongest story, but I think this could have been a really cool idea. With the Multiverse Saga coming to an end and the Mutant Saga being on the horizon, hopefully Marvel takes the time to realize that they need a plan when things start. But with all that being said, let's hope Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday, and Secret Wars are all able to come through with one last big bang. So let me know all your thoughts down below. What did you think of my story? Was there another way that you can involve some of these stories that maybe I forgot about? What would you have done to connect the stories? And are you excited to see the finale in Secret Wars? Let me know all your thoughts down below, and with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.